we spoke a lot about climate. Now let's come back maybe to what to your initial specialty, that is energy. Because you say that there is no climate crisis, but still there is energy crisis, of course. And is there a link, if any, between this energy crisis and all the net zero policies, etc.?
So what society asks for its energy systems are at least three different things. It asks that the energy systems, most importantly, be reliable. In the US, the electrical system, for example, if it goes out more than one day every 10 years, is deemed to be unreliable. So reliability is first, because when it's not there, the whole society stops. The second thing we demand is that it's affordable. As energy prices go up, because energy is absolutely essential, there's good old elasticity, as the economists would say, and so people get squeezed financially, or prices across the whole of society go up when energy is not affordable. And then finally, we would like our energy to be clean. Clean in a local sense, not so much particulate pollution in the air, but also clean in a global sense of not so much greenhouse gas emissions. And we do not have today the technologies that simultaneously provide reliable, affordable, and clean energy. And so, yes, clean is tied up in that whole picture, but I think what people have realized about the energy crisis over the last year or so is that reliable and affordable are more important than clean. And you see that. I mean, Germany is now burning coal, all right? Germany, of all places, okay? But they know if the lights go out, it's a much bigger problem than if CO2 continues to be emitted.
So my initial question was about the link between the current energy crisis and the net zero policies, because in particular we know that asking for windmills or for solar panels put the price to go up. So
So I think there are two effects of the net zero, I would say net zero fantasy, on the energy system generally. One is that, as you say, more wind and solar, which cannot carry the energy system by themselves, will necessarily raise energy prices. But if you also don't invest in facilities to produce more oil and gas, as has been the case in Europe and has been the case in the US as well, the administration will not allow permits, investors are discouraged from investing in oil and gas, then the supply of those things goes down and the prices go up as well. So certainly I would say the net zero policies have contributed to the kind of crisis we're seeing now in energy generally.
Do you have any idea of the way we could explain this to the public? Probably not you, because you, as we know, work with big oil, but to explain that, we just need this kind of energy, we in Europe and in the US, but also in the developing world.
So the developing world is a whole other subject which we can get into in a moment. But I think in the US and Europe, it is becoming explainable to people, at least in the US. People saw 6 months ago the US president running around the world to Saudi Arabia, to Venezuela, urging them to produce more oil, while not encouraging production at home. Things have changed a little bit in the last month or so, where they've started to open up again permitting for domestic production, particularly in Alaska. A big project was just approved. So I think they're starting to realize that it was both illogical but also politically untenable not to encourage production. And so now at least President Biden says the U.S. is going to need oil and gas for at least a decade. I think, he's misinformed about the decade. I would say it's probably many decades, but at least it's a start. So some of this is about the education of the general public about energy realities.
So you're saying that things are going in the right direction?
Slowly.
Right,
yeah. So in the European Union, for example, natural gas is now in the green category and investors can invest in it. Nuclear is in the green category. Maybe even clean coal will find its way into the green category. So, the environmental movement may be repairing the damage it did simply by changing the definitions. And people, the general public will either not be aware or will forget.
You just talked about energy transition. Do you think that it is sensible, this concept is sensible? And if yes, in which way should it be done?
I think that the world is always looking to improve its energy sources and technologies. And we've seen an evolution of energy sources over the last century. Coal and wood were predominant 1900, maybe a bit earlier. And then we saw oil become important, and then natural gas, and then nuclear, and more recently wind and solar are starting to become important. But in fact, those changes take decades to happen because energy systems need to be reliable. They involve large expenditures to get them set up. The facilities last for decades. A power plant lasts for 50 years, for example. And so we need to, and they need to be very reliable, the whole system. So you don't change it real rapidly. I like to say you change an energy system by orthodonture rather than tooth extraction. Slow, steady pressure rather than sudden changes. Because if you do it suddenly, it's going to be very disruptive because energy touches everything, everywhere, all the time. So I think the world will make changes in its energy system, but it would be best done slowly. No country, to my knowledge, or even state, has devised a mitigation, a decarbonization strategy that incorporates technology development, economics, business is important because somebody has to make money, regulation, and human behavior, acceptance, to make a graceful transition. Instead, we just throw stuff at the wall and hope something will stick. Let's deploy a lot of wind, let's deploy a lot of solar, without thinking through the consequences. So let's have a rational discussion, plan, lay out a strategy, and then implement that strategy in a way that I like to say is graceful. Cancel the crisis. There is no crisis, at least according to the IPCC and the data. Do this sensibly.